Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining today's webinar. In a moment, I will be passing you over to my colleague, Niamh Casey, but first, I'm just going to run through some housekeeping points before we get started today. On joining the webinar, everyone has been automatically put on mute. Time has been allocated for your questions at the end of the webinar, and you can ask Niamh any questions using the designated questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel. And then for any follow-up questions that you might have, please feel free to contact us on email at niamh.casey@learnosity.com. And finally, just a reminder that this webinar is being recorded and we will be sending out the recording to everyone who's registered afterwards. And thanks again for joining us, and now it's over to you, Niamh.
Thanks, Saoirse. So yeah, as Saoirse said, I'm Niamh Casey. I'm one of the authoring experts here at Learnosity, and my email's on screen. If you have any authoring related queries, you can always feel free to email me. So for today's webinar, we're going to do a shorter one today, around 30 minutes, and we're going to look at authoring with an ELA content focus. So we're going to look at authoring a passage, and we'll include some embedded audio, and we'll have a look at some other features in the passage option as well. Then we're going to look at authoring a closed text question and a classification question. So I'm just going to jump right into the author site and go to an empty item, and I'm going to add my passage. So click on add new, and a passage is a feature. So we won't find it in the question templates here. We need to click on features. Just to reiterate, it's a feature because it doesn't take in a student response. So click on passage, and we have our question editor on the left here, and our passage preview on the right. So if you look, you have a heading here. So this is where you might enter the title of your passage, or you could even enter the topic, the subject. It's just important to know that you've no text toolbar in this field. So you can't format the text in this field or change the font size. And by default, it is a larger font size. So let's just type some text in here, and you can see it in the preview section. Then you have your contents field. So in here is where you would obviously put your passage of text. You can add images, that kind of thing. But what we're going to do first is in the more options section, down at the end, there's an enable paginated content option. So we're going to turn that on. And the interface here will change a little bit when we do that. So instead of content now, we have content pages here. We have a trash can icon, an add button, and we can drag this field around. Then on the right, we have some navigation buttons for the student and some text here, so page 1 of 1. So what this paginated content feature does is it allows you to add multiple pages in one passage. So kind of like pages in a book, the student can flick between different passages without you having to add tons of passages to an item or even have multiple items of different passages. So I'm going to go to my first page, and I'm going to add some content. So I'm going to just enter in the title of my passage and the author, and I'm going to maybe style some of this text a little bit. So if you want to add any styling to the text, just highlight it and then go to your text toolbar. I'm going to italicize it, and I can add some color to it as well. And then I'm going to center align. So just highlight again to add the style, select the center align option from the toolbar, and that's done. Then I'm going to go to a new line, and again in the text toolbar we have an option to upload an image. So I'm just going to upload an image just to show you how it's done. So click on the image icon, you'll get a pop-up box here. So you can upload an image from your own machine, or you can paste in an image in this more options field if you have it hosted elsewhere online. So I'm just going to add an image from my computer. And once that's done, you'll have the options here to change the width and the height of the image. So that's kind of handy. You don't have to go into a text editor yourself separately, or a photo editor yourself separately and modify the image. You can just do it when you upload it. You can also set this image alignment. So my text is center aligned, so I'm going to get my image to be center aligned too. You can also set some alternative text here as well. So that would just be some text that would appear in place of the image should the image not load on the page for some reason. So click OK when you're done there. And now we have our image, we have our text. If you want to resize the image directly in the text field, you can actually do that too. So just click on the image and you'll see these little icons in each corner, and you can click and drag them to resize the image. If you want to open up that pop-up box again to change the width and height manually or change the alternative text, just click on the edit button and it'll pop back up again. Okay, so then I'm just going to add maybe some instructions and then I'm going to add my second page. So okay, so on my next page, I'm going to click this add button underneath the first field. So that'll be my second page. If you do add the pages in the wrong order, that's fine. Just click and drag to change the order. I'm going to change it back. So now what I want is I want to have some audio embedded with my passage. So I want to have the audio for the passage so that the student doesn't have to read. If they can't or don't want to, they can listen to it instead. So I'll put that at the top. So what I'll do is I'll go again to our text toolbar, and I'm going to select the simple feature option here. So it's the icon with the music note. Click on that and you'll get another pop-up box. And in here, select the audio player from the menu. So the idea with simple features is that you can embed the features we have available in the feature section in all of our features templates. So the video player, the audio player, calculator, protractor, and ruler, you can actually embed those inside a question. So anywhere you see that rich text toolbar, you'll have the simple feature option to embed, say, audio, video, whatever. So we'll select the audio player. And then we have a few different player types in the drop down. That's just to do with how the audio player looks. So we can have it as text, an image. There's a few options. I'm just going to select minimal because we do have quite a lot of text in our passage. So it's just to keep it simple. We can preview at the bottom to see what minimal looks like. And then I'm just going to upload some audio as well. So just like with the image, you can upload from your own machine, or you can enter in a URL for some audio that's hosted elsewhere online. So again, you upload here and you can paste in the URL. So just upload some audio. And then click OK when you're done. And again, you can preview the audio here. You can press play to listen to it back. If you're unhappy with that, you can edit and change the file. You can also set up a playback limit, so how many times the student can play the audio before the play button becomes disabled. So 0 in this instance would mean an infinite number of times, but you can have whatever number you want. I'll just leave it at 0 for this one. Click OK. So now in the editor, we don't see the audio player, we just see an icon indicating to us that there's an audio player there. But if we go to preview, we can see the audio player on the right. Okay, so once that's done, we'll go to a new line, and now I'm going to paste in my passage. So I'm just going to go to my passage here. I have it on just in a text editor. Now, because I'm pasting from a text editor, I'm going to use the paste button in the rich text toolbar just to paste as plain text. So this just avoids any formatting being carried over from the text editor. So it's really handy if you're using something like Microsoft Word and you don't want any formatting to come over. I'm just going to paste, click OK, and that's done. So I can preview again just to make sure it all looks good. So I'm going to just do a couple of other things to tidy this up a little bit. So I'm going to highlight this text and I want to number the paragraphs. So once it's all highlighted, again, back to my text toolbar. And we have this drop down next to the source button, and it's called the formatting styles drop down. And if you scroll down, you'll see a numbered paragraph option. And if I click on that, that will automatically number my paragraphs for me in a really tidy way. So it's really handy if I want to refer to these paragraphs in a question, and it just makes it really readable for the student. So one last thing I want to do is I want to emphasize some of the words in the passage for the student. So one of my questions, I'm referencing some words in the story. So I want to highlight those for the student so that they can easily see them. So I'm just going to highlight the word I want. Then again in the text toolbar, there's an underlined indicator option. Click on that. Enter in, it can be a number, a letter, Roman numerals, whatever you like. I'm going to just enter A, click OK. So now what happens is, let's just look at this in preview. That word is underlined and it has a character next to it. So I can refer to this word and the student can easily find it in the text. So I'm just going to highlight a couple other words here. And I'll just do 2 more. And you can also really easily delete and edit these as well if you want to. So if you want to delete the underlined indicator style from a word, just hover over the word, it'll change color when you hover over it, click it, and then remove. We'll just remove the style, not the word. And if you want to change the indicator that you've associated with the word, you can do that just with the edit button and the pop-up box will appear again. Just going to highlight one more word. Okay. And then we'll save when we're done. Okay, so before I add my questions, I'm just going to change the layout of this item a little bit. So at the moment, if I was to add questions, they'll appear underneath this passage, which isn't what I want. I'd like the passage to appear on one side of the item and the questions to appear on the other side. So I'm going to go to the settings tab on the top right of my item edit view. So just make sure you're on edit view when you look for the settings tab and not on preview. So click settings and you'll see some different column layouts. So we're going to select 50-50 here. And I'm going to enable the vertical divider. I'm scrolling for long content while I'm here. The vertical divider is just a visible dividing line down the center of the 2 columns. It's just tidy, looks nice. And then the scrolling for long content is just because my passage is quite long, so I'd like a scrollable container around it. So click apply when you're done. And now I can just preview those changes. So I can see my line down the center of my columns, my 2 columns, and I can see my scroll bar as well. So I'm going to go back to edit and I'm going to add my 2 questions now. First, we'll add the cloze text question. So we'll click add new. We'll go to fill in the blanks cloze section of our question templates and we'll select cloze with text. So in here, we'll enter in the compose question area, will kind of enter in some instructions for the student. So we'll just say, complete the statement below. Okay, so I just have some text ready here and I'm just gonna copy and paste it in just to save a bit of time. So I'm going to delete all this from the template markup area. The template markup area is where you're going to put your text and your response boxes. So the text that you want the student to fill in the blanks, you're going to put that in here. So I'm going to paste again as my plain text, click OK. So I have some square brackets in here where I want to put the response box. So I'm just going to delete those. And when you find where you want to put your response box, click in the area and then in your text toolbar, you'll see an insert response button. This is only available in the template area of these kinds of cloze questions and fill in the blanks questions. So click on that and your response box will be added. Another way you can add a response box if you're typing and you just want to do it really quickly is just press the underscore button on your keyboard twice and it'll also add the response box. So that's just really useful if you want to do it as you go. So then to set the correct answer, and again, we can have as many response boxes as we want in this question. So to set the correct answer then, we would just type into the response box as the student would. And that's it, it's really simple. I can test it here as well in the preview mode just to make sure it's all okay and it looks good. Then in the more options section, there's just a couple of options in the scoring section that are unique to this type of question. So you have a case sensitive option here. This is turned off by default, but if it's turned on, it just means that the case that the student enters their response in must match the case I've set in validation. So I've entered the word personification here as the correct answer in all lowercase. If I had this turned on and the student entered the answer in all uppercase, it would be marked as incorrect, even though it is the correct word. So it's not really relevant in this instance, so we'll keep it off. Then we also have a maximum length in characters option. So this just you can configure what the absolute maximum characters the student can enter into the response box are. So you could set this to be as small of a number or a relatively big number if you want to. If the student tries to type beyond that limit, nothing will happen. They just won't be able to type it to the box. The characters that they're trying to type won't appear. And then further down in the layout section, you can enable a character map on this question type, on this one and on the short text question type as well. So if I turn this on, it's a special characters option. If I turn this on and I click into the response area in the preview section, I have a special characters icon that appears. And if I click on that, I'll get this default Learnosity character map. But I can override that if I want to, if I don't want that many symbols or if I want different symbols. So in this characters to display field down here, I can just enter in whatever characters I would like. Don't enter in any spaces or commas, just enter the characters in one after the other. And then when I go back to this preview area and click on the character map, I can see my custom characters have overridden the Learnosity character map. Okay, so we'll just undo that. Then the multiple line option will just allow the student to type multiple lines of text in their answer. So if that isn't enabled, they can only type one line and then it'll stop them. Multiple line, it just lets them type. You see a scroll bar here. So if you had a bigger response box, you might want that. And then we also have some response container settings here. So response container global will apply to all response boxes in the question. And then response container individual is the configurations for individual response boxes in the question. So in this case, we've only one response box, so we can just use global. It doesn't really matter. But response container individual is useful if you want the response boxes to be different sizes or just have, different placeholder text or something. So in response container global, we can change the width 60 pixels. And you always enter the width and the height values in pixels. And then you can also change the input type. So it's set to text by default always, but you can change it to number. And if I change it to number, if I try to type text into the box, nothing happens, the box stays empty. But if I select text, you can type text on numbers. And then I can also enter in some placeholder text. So I can type in response and then that will disappear when the student starts typing in their answer. And that's it. It's really, really simple. So we'll click save. And that is our first question. So then we'll go in and we'll add our second question, which will be a classification question. So we'll go in here, and classification is in the classify, match and order section. This is where you'll find all your matching and drag and drop style questions. So click on classification. Again, in the compose question area, we'll just enter in some instructions for the student. So match. Okay. So in this, you can kind of set this up however you want. In this case, we have one row. So it almost looks like just different response containers. We also can set it up as a table. So we could have like 5 rows here and 3 columns and make it more of a grid. It's quite a flexible question type. So we'll stick with 1 row for now. So this is where I'm going to refer to my 4 words that I highlighted in the question, in the passage. So I had 4 words, so I'm going to have 4 columns, so a column for each word. And then I'm going to make my column titles the words. So let's type those really quickly. Okay. I don't have any row titles to add, but if I did, I just click on the add button here and you can see it comes in on the side there. Okay, so I'll just delete that. Then I can set up my possible responses. So I have those pre-made here. So I'm just gonna copy these in here. Okay, really, really simple. If I want to change the order of these for any reason, I can do that with the drag and drop again, just like we saw on the paginated passage. And I can delete with the trash can icon. I can add as many options as I want as well with the add button. And then in the validation section, I'll just set up my correct answer, like with the closed text, just drag and drop the way the student would. So I'm just going to put these in. Okay. And you have a couple of additional options in this validation area for this question type. So show dry candle just refers to, if you look in the preview section here, this black icon to the left of the response options. So you can turn that off if you want, just to untick it. It's always enabled by default. Then duplicate responses is turned off. So what that does if it's turned on is it allows the student to reuse the same response in more than one cell. So for example, they could answer each cell with the same response option if you have that turned on. If it's turned off, they can only use each response option once. And then shuffle options will just render these options, the draggable response options, in a different order each time the question is rendered on the page. So different students in the room will get different orders of response options. Then down in the more options section, you can also configure the response container position. So the response container position in this instance is just talking about this gray box with all the draggable responses. So by default, it's on the bottom of the question. You can set it to be on the top or on the left or the right, whatever suits you. It's set to bottom by default. You can also set up some width and height for the row titles. So we saw these here, they'd be to the left of our columns if we had a row title. So you can just set a width and height that text will take up. And you can also set up a header for your rows if you had rows. And then you can also configure the maximum responses for each cell. So 0 is the default, and that just means the student can put like all of the response options in the one cell if they wanted to, as you can see here. But I'm going to change this to 1 because there is only one response per cell in this question. So now if I add one response to a cell and I try to add a second response, it'll just swap the two responses over. So it'll only allow 1. And that is it. So I'm just going to save that. Now, so there we have it. So I'm just going to preview this to just go over what we looked at. So we have our item 2-column layout. We have our visible vertical dividing line down the center. And we also have scrolling on our passage as well. And we did all that in the settings section in the item edit page. Then on the left, we have a passage with we have an image, we have the paginated content enabled. We also have some embedded audio with the simple feature. We have the underlined indicator here and numbered paragraphs. Then on the right, we have our closed text question, and we also have a classification question as well. And that's it, really, really simple. So that's it. If you have any questions, you can email me at my email address, niamh.casey@learnosity.com. You can also email authoring@learnosity.com to reach the wider authoring team. Or if you do have a Learnosity support account, you can log a ticket at support.learnosity.com. Okay, thank you everyone.